Hello, my name is Andy, but most people call me Papa Bear. And my clients say that I am their afterlife coach. It's my mission to accompany them and, well, you in joy and sorrow so that you may become your ever more authentic self. And welcome now to Life After Life. This is my YouTube channel. And here I bear witness to the powerful stories of LGBTQ people and their allies. And together we celebrate their ability to start again after adversity, trauma, and pain. For this podcast, I'm excited to welcome Jesse Diamond. Before we
Hey,
got started, I said to Jesse, can you name me three things that would help me understand who you are? And he said, I am a proud trans man, a former personal trainer and now strength athlete, and an adult entertainer. So, Jesse, welcome.
how's it going?
Thanks for being here today.
No problem.
So, those were the three bits of information about you. Where would you like to start?
We could start with my transition.
Absolutely. So, what part of your journey as a trans man is most meaningful for you, would you say?
Uh, Probably connecting with other trans people, creating a sense of community, and educating cis people about the trans experience. Um, Creating a sense of community it helps us survive and thrive, and educating others is how we gain acceptance within society.
Would you be able to tell me about a moment when you had a sense of, hey, this thing I just did really was establishing community?
Uh, I started trying to build up my social media. I'd say summer 2016. So I could help other trans masculine people or other trans people as an online personal trainer. I didn't expect to have as many followers as I did, and over the years I've been able to meet literally hundreds of trans people, and I didn't knowingly meet a trans person before I started my transition. So uh, it's been amazing to connect with people that way.
What happens when, as a trans person, you meet another trans person? What does that do for you?
It generally, it obviously differs from person to person. We're all unique, but generally puts me at ease. I don't have to worry about dysphoria or censoring anything about myself. I don't have to worry about being stealth. I can just be who I am and unapologetically without having to think twice.
And if I were to ask you, what are some of the challenges you had to face on your journey? What would you say?
I've moved roughly like 13 or 14 times since I've started my transition over the last 10 years. So I could find affordable housing, and so I could qualify for specific insurance coverage to get the funding for my gender affirming care. So it's been hard to establish in person larger groups of friends. So most of my friends are all over the place. I'll have a few maybe in each city, but that's been a challenge. Just keeping a close network where I am, because where I am keeps changing.
Okay. What is it, the fact that you moved around so much, would you tie that to being trans? Is one a product of the other?
Yes, I've that almost every single one of those moves was so I could be in as affordable housing as possible, so I
Okay.
could save, or so I could be in the specific state that I needed in the specific region of the state, so I could qualify uh, for the insurance that covers which surgery I needed at that time.
Okay. Okay. And so at each stage along the way, as you're making physical changes, you had to find a way to, what I'm hearing is I had to find a way to fund that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands of dollars, tens and tens of thousands of
Okay.
dollars.
I'm beginning to get a picture. And so I can imagine then that socking away money must have been, and maybe still is for you, a big priority.
Uh, yeah. Now that I have a large gap in between my next gender affirming surgery, because the last surgery I had was implanting a device, and uh, foreign devices need to be removed every 7 to 10 years or sooner if there's issues. Um, it's it's been important that I find multiple forms of income and apply myself with whatever work I do.
Okay. And my friend, if I were to say, what is it about the journey as a trans man? What has it taught you about yourself?
That I'm a lot stronger than I ever realized, and the journey to my definition of manhood has helped me better connect with all types of men.
And along the way, I mean, is there a story? Is there a that you could tell us that might give us a sense of what it means to really kind of step into yourself in that way?
Which part? Stronger than I realized, or
Yeah, yeah. Like what did you have to have strength for?
uh, one example. I started the medical process for my bottom surgeries, just the phalloplasty, not including my hysterectomy. I started that in early 2019, and my body did not fully heal and get back to normal hormonal balance from all those surgeries until January of 2024. So that was a 5 year process.
And if I may ask, because this is something that popped up in our pre-interview, hormonal balance. What kind of challenge does that present for you?
Uh, well, my body's changed as I've since the beginning of my transition. The beginning of my transition, I hadn't had a hysterectomy, and I was 109 pounds. I'm about 150 pounds with the same body now, and I had a hysterectomy, so that's affected how my body's absorbed the testosterone and how it metabolizes it. So it, the way I've had to administer my shots has changed, um, and I've had to kind of keep up with that, even during the periods where I haven't had medical insurance where I could afford to get the
Oh,
blood at every time I needed it.
okay, okay. I'm beginning to see. Um, and may I ask, what did you notice after you had the hysterectomy?
Uh, for me personally, I think my body had an easier time synthesizing the testosterone. There was nothing really. Um, it was the estrogen in my body wasn't affecting the testosterone to aromatize into estrogen,
Mhm.
or the testosterone wasn't fighting with the estrogen to take dominance, basically.
And
So
what was that like for you? Like, what did you notice in yourself? Did you suddenly pack on more muscle, or what was that like?
it was it became a little easier to put on lean muscle tissue, and I did did start to get a little hairier all over my body. Like my beard got thicker over time. I started to get chest hair and like a happy trail. But all those could just be from being on. I'm almost 10 years on testosterone, so
Okay, okay,
that. But oftentimes the that can happen after having a hysterectomy.
okay. And may I ask you, that morning when you get out of bed and stand in front of the mirror and you notice those changes, you see that, oh, my beard is thicker. I've got some chest hair, there's a little happy trail. What runs through your mind?
Uh, Oftentimes I think about myself as a child, because when I tried to picture myself growing up as an adult, I would always picture like a man,
Mhm.
with a strong build and a beard. And I was assigned female at birth, and I was socialized as female. And even though I presented as male, I didn't understand what those feelings meant. But I was aware of those feelings as long as I have conscious memory, like my earliest memories of being aware of my dysphoria and knowing what I should look like. I was probably about 3 years old.
Okay.
So I think about younger me and just grateful that I, refused to compromise myself and that I stayed true to myself and eventually, you know, found my way to become the person I was supposed to be. Just proud of the little guy.
And so I'm going to press you on that a little bit further, if I may. Um, so you look in the mirror and you say to yourself, "What? This is who I saw when I imagined myself growing up."
Uh, uh, I don't know how to. I hope this doesn't put me in a bad light. I never imagined that I would look like the way I do, and I'm proud of the hard work that I've put into making my body feel like, and uh, feeling 100% confident with my body head to toe. It's been worth every ounce of effort and time and heartache and money that's been put into it.
Okay. And so what I think I'm hearing then is, hey, not only did I reach that image that I had in my mind's eye as a child, I've surpassed
And it doesn't stop me from uh, further goals.
it. Maybe this is a nice segue then into the next part of our conversation. But I just indulge me for 1 second more. Um, if you think about that moment when you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you go, it finally matches. It finally matches. What what would you say to all of the other trans people out there who are maybe at earlier stages in their journey?
I mean, I'd first like to preface that you don't need medical intervention in order to feel at home in your body as a trans person. This is just speaking about my unique personal relationship with my body. Um, it's it's either the best feeling in the world or it's one of the best feelings in the world, and if it's possible, then it's worth fighting for. Everyone should, you know, everyone everyone deserves to feel comfortable in their own skin, even if it's a hard journey. Um, and I'm trying to create visibility about my search for people who have similar relationships with their to show that uh, although it can be a grueling process and a painful one, not not every story is a bad one, and not there are stories with happy endings, and you can you don't have to spend your life trying to figure out how to get all your gender affirming surgeries. There can be life after that. You can just enjoy being alive and comfortable in your own skin. It's
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say is, hey, this particular form that I have chosen may not be the form that everybody's after.
Yes, I have a very unique relationship with my body. Not that way, but there are some other people who have similar feelings. So trying to
Sure. And
create.
so, I
They don't.
mean, each of us who identifies as a man may come to this with a different idea of what it means to be a man. But I should think that that moment when you catch a glimpse of yourself and you finally fit the way you have wanted to see yourself, that must be a very joyful experience.
It's something I've didn't think I'd ever have, and caused me a lot of pain for many many years. So uh, I'm grateful for it every moment. Don't doubt that.
Okay. And the pain, I think I'm hearing is the pain is from those moments when I caught sight of myself and it didn't match the way I felt about myself inside.
Yeah. So talking about 33 years of my life, yeah, about that.
Okay. 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 And so you mentioned, yeah, my particular ideas about what I want, what and how I wanted to be as a man are particular. So let's get into that. Um, first of all, how did you come to be a personal trainer?
Uh, I started working out in December of 2012. I was going through another rough period, and I reached out to a friend online, and they just recommended running. They weren't really an athlete, and they didn't do much else with fitness, but they said that it helped them clear their head and deal with stress better, and that it's good for the health and it can feel good. And I was never the type of person to want to try any sort of physical activity before. So it was a
Mm.
surprise that I gave it a shot. I was like, okay, I'll start running. And I think within the first few weeks, I had like a my first 6 mile run, and I got my first runner's high, and just stick working out ever since.
Okay.
Uh,
And then how did you go from running to the gym?
So from December 2012 to April 2013, I was basically living in the gym, and by April, I started taking classes online with Bryan University to get an associate's degree in exercise science and to
Okay.
study for my NASM personal training certification.
Okay. And so take me through that experience if you would. You you never really thought of yourself, what I'm hearing is as an athlete. And then
No,
all of a sudden this happens. What was that like for you?
uh, a very pleasant surprise. I, uh, I don't know. I just got to a very low point in my life, and I was willing to try anything, even just a crazy, stupid idea like running. I was like, I'm not gonna like that. I loved it, and I'm gonna get back into it once I reach all my lifting goals.
Okay. Now, not all runners wind up lifting weights.
Nope.
What was the connection there for you?
Uh, well, when I first started exercising, I just wanted to try everything.
Okay.
I was just curious to learn. I was curious to, make the mind muscle connection and to understand my body better. Um, so it was natural to, want to pick up weights and give it a try. And then I was taught proper form for all the exercises and lifting in college. So I was able to apply that to my own training. Um, it was pure curiosity. But then I noticed that I liked the way my muscles were changing. Uh, so uh, I kind of kept up with it.
Okay. And as a personal trainer, is there a moment that you're particularly proud of?
Uh, just in general, I had the chance to work with hundreds of trans people, and oftentimes it was helping them prepare for surgery, whether that was top surgery or bottom surgery, and or recovering afterwards, because both can be anxious or stressful times, and they're both kind of critical times to prepare one's body because your body's about to go through something very traumatic. Um, so it was fulfilling to be that person to kind of coach them in the right direction, but also, you know, be an ear that could be understanding if they're having a tough moment.
Okay. And imagine I were a trans man about to have top surgery. What would you do with me? How would you get me prepared?
I would have to have more information than that.
Okay.
Um, uh, Generally, you want to surgeons like it if they can have a better idea or better able to see um, the area that they're working with. It can help them uh, make choices for incisions and such where the individual might be happier with the results. Uh, Surgeons often recommend that you spend time doing some sort of strength training, at least 6 months to a year before top surgery, or at least a lot of the top surgeons I've talked to. It makes their job easier, and there's a great potential of the recipient being more pleased with the results.
And so I'm guessing that there might be two things going on there. It's helpful for the surgeon if there is sort of a more muscular condition on one hand, and then I'm guessing that the other thing is if you reduce body fat a little bit easier, they got more of the landmarks to work with as they're going in. Am I right or am I wrong?
Well, I mean, it also depends on what the individual wants for themselves. Some people really just want their chests to be absolutely flat. They don't
Okay.
want a um, any sort of visible pecs or like outward indentation. Some people want it to be more shaped like pecs, and it's everyone's relationship with their body is unique and what they want for themselves. But I'm just speaking in general from the clients that I've worked with, what they've asked of me.
Okay. And so your process might be then to, if I'm your client, to sit down and talk to me and say, what is it that you want to work towards? How do you see yourself physically, sort of post transition, and how do we get you there? And so if I say to you, oh, I just, in silhouette, I just want to be perfectly flat, then you might do something different with me if I said, no, I want to be a big muscular guy with pecs out
Yeah,
to here.
absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Um, and so I understand that you no longer work as a trainer, but instead you kind of made the transition, pardon the pun, to competing as a strength athlete. How did that come about?
Uh, my first strength competition was about 4.5 months after I started testosterone in 2014. I did a full powerlifting event, so squat, bench, and deadlift.
Mhm.
Um, and I was in I think like the 113 weight class. It was only like 109 pounds. And then I did two bodybuilding shows, and my first one was an NPC show in 2017.
Cool. Um, you competed as a man, yeah?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
these are all post transition.
Okay. 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 Um, and can I ask, was that an event specifically for trans people, or was it a mainstream event and you just found that
It,
it was tolerant enough that you could do it?
I mean, I would probably do better now. That was 7 years ago.
Okay.
It was no, it was the National Physique Committee. That's the
Right. The NPC.
yes, that's the major amateur competitive organization for bodybuilding in America. So it was just a standard. It was the California State Championship.
Okay.
As
And,
far as I
and
else was cisgender, but I wasn't asking people about their genitals or their, what they were assigned at birth. So
okay. And so what was that experience like for you? I mean, let's be real here. To compete, you have to strip down to nothing, and sometimes in the pump room to nothing while people are tanning you up. And you're with a bunch of guys who may or may not be the most enlightened. What was that experience like for you?
I mean, I did have bottom dysphoria at the time. This is 2.5 ish years before I had my first bottom surgery. So I was wearing what's called like an FTM packer. So it's just a little soft looking penis and balls that
Mhm.
you your underwear. So there's a bulge there. Um, yeah, I mean, for the most part, it was okay. I was more upset that my tan did not turn out right. It did not help show my definition whatsoever, and I paid a lot of money for it. So I was really
Uh, okay.
was more upset about that than feeling
Than anything
dysphoric.
else. Okay. But I wasn't thinking maybe so much about you feeling dysphoric, but were there any negative reactions from the people around you?
I don't think anyone knew unless if I said something
Okay.
or they. My I was in the bathroom and my packer fell out onto the
Mhm.
floor. Somebody in the bathroom next to me. I hope he didn't see, but I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. So
Okay.
fun transmasculine moment where it's like, oh well, yeah, that,
Oops.
he's my dick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because in an era when we're hearing so much fuss being made about trans athletes and who uses what bathroom, um, it's maybe refreshing, encouraging, reassuring to hear you tell a story of no, I was there in that environment. My body is exposed, and yet people just went about their business, and my biggest worry that day was my spray tan.
Yeah, no, I was really much more upset about that than even my Packer falling out. I
Okay.
thought falling out was, I mean, momentarily horrifying, but honestly funny.
Sorry, I'm visualizing
You could laugh at.
it. Okay. So let's get back to being a strength athlete. Because you were telling me a bit before that now there are specific events that you compete in.
Yes. So I don't do a full powerlifting event. I was just competing in bench press, but over last summer, I took up strict curl.
Mhm.
Just you use an easy bar to perform a biceps curl standing against a wall. So your scapula and your glutes maintain contact with the wall at all times. So you're not using any momentum from any other part of your body to lift the weight up. It's strictly the biceps curl.
Mhm. Uh, what happens to your elbows? Are they against the wall too, or that's not one of the requirements?
Not no, everyone's anatomy is different. It would be impossible for a lot of the big guys to get their elbows all the way back.
Okay. And what is it you like about bench and strict curl?
Uh, I I stopped training legs after I had my first phalloplasty surgery because I couldn't move my left. I couldn't bend my left knee for 6 or 7 weeks after I had surgery. Couldn't walk, and I had to relearn how to walk. And I have no tactile sensation in most of my leg, uh, and I have circulatory issues. So sometimes
And that's because your left leg was a donor for the skin graft, right?
it was the donor flesh, the donor tissue for my
Okay,
yes.
gotcha.
Uh, so sometimes it locks up on me, and I, yeah, I, I'm not fully comfortable, doing maximum strength training with it, and I wanted to stay in a lower weight class, so I stopped training legs, and I just spend a lot of time on the stairmaster, and that's what I do for my legs.
Okay. May I ask how long ago the phalloplasty was?
My first phalloplasty surgery was in August 2019.
Okay. And was that the last surgery that you had?
No, the last surgery I had was implanting the internal erectile device. So that was the third surgery in March of 2022.
Okay. Okay. So a year, 2 years, basically.
2.5 years,
And
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so as a strength athlete, what's next for you?
I qualified for the nationals for 365 strong world powerlifting organization.
Mhm.
Qualified for girl, so I will be there on May 18th in Charlotte, North Carolina, to compete.
Oh, cool. I'll have to reach out to you afterwards, find out how you did. Is there anything else that you want to tell us about about your athletic prowess?
Um, Before I transitioned, I was on the University of San Francisco's women's rugby team. So that's another fun highlight. Yeah, that's the most of it. Right now, I'm just trying to have fun with it while making progress.
Okay. Okay. And I should imagine too that these are very affirming activities. I mean, they're things that men are supposed to do. Men are supposed to be strong. Men are supposed to be muscular. And yeah.
Yeah, if my idea of manhood is adhering to traditional masculinity, I'm very comfortable in embracing my feminine side. The, me liking lifting so much is probably the most bro-ish thing about me.
I'm as a gay man who was repeatedly called a sissy and all kinds of things growing up. I can identify with some of the story that you're telling in the sense that, I've found the gym and discovered that, hey, this is actually turning me into the man that I wanted to be, and was a way of silencing those voices that told me I was a weirdo when I was younger. Because now the way I look matches the way I've always wanted to be. And so I can imagine the healing power of that.
I'm glad you understand those feelings as well.
Yeah. And I think it's important to point out, as you already did, that that's not the only image of masculinity that somebody might have.
No,
It happens to be one, right?
yeah,
And
no, I always thought that muscles look cool. I always wanted to look like a superhero or one of the action figures that I played with growing up.
I hear you. Then you, we had to work together to make some art then. And one of my sidelines is doing digital art, and I usually focus on getting guys to dress up as superheroes for me. So maybe
Oh,
we should do a shoot.
we'll definitely have to talk more about that.
Okay. Now I want to move into the world of adult entertainment, if I might. How did that happen?
Well, hmm. Okay, let's see if I can answer this. I got into nude modeling because someone stole all of my surgery money, and I was homeless in San Diego. So I already had a modeling contract with Andrew Christian, and they wanted to do a nude shoot anyway. So I was like, okay, well, I need the money. So that's how I got started with OnlyFans. Um, and then a couple years later, I needed uh, a lot more money for my final surgery. So that's how I got more involved. Um, but I've always enjoyed educating others about the phalloplasty process because there's not enough, public information available, and I think it's important to, share the journey. So uh, that's another way I sort of began my journey into adult work was uh, opening up about that part of myself.
Okay. What does it mean to you to be able to educate people in that way?
Well, I've been making more educational posts on Twitter lately, and I get a lot of comments and messages from uh, transmasculine people um, saying that either that they have a somewhat similar relationship with their body or they have like the same relationship with their body,
Okay.
and not just that, that they did not know that the options that I chose for myself are available at all.
Okay.
Very important that that people understand that different surgical teams will have different options available,
Right.
uh, but they should be aware of all the options that are available in their country.
And when we were talking earlier, I was kind of asking you to get me up to speed on some of the procedures that a trans man might go through. And I had memories of people having the phalloplasty with the donor site being the arm, and didn't know, for example, that it could be another part of the body. And
Uh,
then,
I mean, there are two other regions of the body that I'm aware of that can be plastic can be performed with, depending if the surgeon offers that and if the candidate is, if they're a good candidate for it.
and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the donor site is, I don't think it would be too extreme to say it becomes disfigured.
Uh, it's funny looking. Do
Okay.
you want
What's that?
to see it?
Sure, if you want to.
Okay. Well, good thing this is a podcast because I have to take my pants off.
Here he goes entertaining us as adults. Okay.
So that's the donor leg,
Okay.
and you probably can't see it too much, but you might be able to see like a pinkish outline, a giant
Uh-huh.
angle. This is the skin graft that they put onto the donor.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. And so I can imagine that that's got to be a very careful choice to say, which part of the body do I want to be impacted by this?
Oh, I mean, I don't see a lot of surgeons, putting 100% of the choice in the patient because they are gonna, you know, strongly encourage their recommendations and give their medical reasons, uh, or they're just
Right.
not, or they're just not going to feel comfortable using a certain region of the body because
Okay.
they are a good candidate.
Right. Now, would I be right then in thinking that you could perhaps find another surgeon who was willing to work with another part of the body?
Uh, are you asking specifically for my forearm or like other regions that I did?
Well, I was just thinking about when you're saying about making sure that people have information out there. I can imagine that the choice, like imagine that I'm a trans man, I want to have a phalloplasty. The choice of where the donor side is, my arm, my leg, is going to impact my future, right? And so I might want to think about, oh, if I have a choice in this, where do I want the donor site to be?
Yeah. And the other two regions of the body that are, available, I wouldn't say they're as widely available as RFF, which is the forearm, and
Okay.
ALT leg. Um, I don't remember the medical terms that they use, but uh, one is that they'll take from like the back part of your lat,
Okay.
uh, right over there. That one, I don't know anybody who's ever had that or seen anybody who's ever had that. And then the other option is if there's enough skin and if there's enough tissue in the abdominal region near the
Okay.
belly. So just like this flap, like right here, they'll
Okay.
just the skin from there.
Okay. Okay. And so given, you were saying the nerve damage and difficulty moving and whatnot, I mean, you have to be ready to face those consequences. Yeah.
Yes, you need to be able to afford to take the extended time off from work. You
Yep.
need if you're going to have ALT and even an RFF, you're going to need at least one person, if not more than one person, to kind of help you take care of you around the clock for 24 hours for at least the first month.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
it, it's
Okay.
not something to do by yourself.
Okay. So I can see, we started off down this road because you said, oh, I use my YouTube channel and other social media outlets as a way of educating people around choices. And I can understand how the choice and the information will be really important to have.
Well, I never really use my YouTube channel. I've probably not logged into that in
Okay.
years. Instagram and Twitter
Sorry,
and
I meant to say OnlyFans.
OnlyFans. Yes.
Um, okay. And so in getting information out there to other people, and how easy do you think it was for you to get information?
Uh, hmm. I feel. I'm sorry that this is my explanation, but I think it's the truth. I feel like I just really lucked out
Okay.
because the the most valuable information and the most information I received about phalloplasty and figuring out what would be best for me, what I would want for myself, what options were available, how to figure out insurance stuff, and working with the hospitals. Uh, it was two of my clients, the two trans men that I had worked with that, I'd been following them on social media for years before that. Um, one of them, he reached out to me after his second surgery, or either before, I think it was after his second surgery. Yeah, it was after his second surgery, so he could recover. And the he asked if he could show me his results, and seeing his results was, kind of
Uh,
it gave me the courage that I needed to start my journey. Um,
and
and
so what does it mean to you now to be that person? because you're visible, and how many trans men find you on social media, on OnlyFans, and say, oh, now somebody I know has gone through that.
Uh, it hasn't totally hit me yet, but I mean, I understand when they say like, "That's what I want for myself." But this is such great news. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing. That's how I felt with my friend. Verse shared, what he had chosen for his body and what options are available, and showed me his results. It was life changing for me. So I just want to help. If I can help anybody have a better relationship with their body, even if it's just by informing them on what options might be available, then I should do it, and I'm more than happy to do it.
absolutely. So what I think I'm hearing in all of that is, again, getting back to this idea of who I want to be. And now all of a sudden something clicks and you realize, oh, this is the thing that's going to take me to where I want to go. I
Yeah,
can imagine just how powerful that is to suddenly realize this can be done. Yeah.
it, it can flip a switch and there's a light on, and then there's hope. Like I have multiple people tell me that I've given them hope, and you know
I
hope
get it
having hope changed my life. So
for
I'm
sure.
I'm more than happy to you know share whatever information I can to give it to others.
Okay. Absolutely. I get that. And so I was going to ask you, what do you think is important about your work in adult entertainment? But I think you kind of answered that question. I wonder, might I ask you, so that obviously is when the gaze of other trans men or other trans people falls upon you. What happens when you're out there putting yourself out there as a product, and it's the gaze of non-trans people, of cisgendered people, that falls on you? What is that like?
Um, I truly just hope to humanize trans people in the eyes of cis people. However that looks and however that starts. So, and I've had cis men reach out to me and thank me for educating them about uh, what I've gone through as a trans person, because it's helped them to become more understanding, and it it's definitely rewarding in its own way. I can't personally relate because I'm not cis. I can relate to the trans people, and them being excited about getting surgery information that they're looking for because I've been there. I've like
Okay.
personally.
I was thinking, I mean, what happens when a cis man says to you, or indeed a cis woman says to you, "Hey, I think you're sexy." Um, that I'm imagining, and correct me if I'm wrong, that must be sometimes complicated terrain to navigate. I should imagine that there is, on some level, a degree of fetishization of a trans body,
Yeah,
and
if it's not like very directly, or obviously directly fetishizing me as a trans person, my trans as my trans body, then I don't try to take it personally,
okay,
regardless of how vulgar it might seem.
mhm.
It's internet; people are free to say whatever they want. Um, it's not reflective of how I, always like to be spoken to by strangers, but I try to, you know, I try to take things as they are. Maybe not always directly. If someone's trying to give you a compliment, you can just take it, and if they go too far and makes you uncomfortable, that's okay too. You're allowed to have boundaries.
Right, right. When we did the pre-interview, I think we drew a parallel to what it means to be a person of color and to be in the adult industry. I have a couple of friends who are sex workers and porn stars who are black, and the whole BBC business, being seen first and foremost for their race, and then only afterwards as a person. And so often there's a line between those people who say, yeah, give me that BBC, versus the people that see them as a person and that say, you're sexy not because of not because of your race or any other feature, but because you're you.
Yeah, then that's the difference between, expressing sexual attraction and then fetishizing someone and, kind of dehumanizing them, turning them into a sex object. So someone can tell me that, they think I'm sexy, or, you know, even if that they wish that I did something sexual to them, and it might not necessarily be fetishizing. Like, I want to get naked with you. That doesn't make me feel fetishized as a trans person, specifically. Um, but if they're talking specifically about my body parts and like obsessing over my transness in that way,
Yeah, yeah.
then it's like, or if they are saying like you're the hottest trans man I've ever seen, it's like,
Uh,
well,
uh,
I'm
uh,
and we're all men, and you shouldn't have to clarify. That's weird.
exactly. And so that's the first B in the BBC, right? And so I can see there's a very similar thing going on here where, okay, what am I seen as first? Am I a person first, or am I an example of a trans person?
Mm.
Um, what can I ask you? Has it happened to you, for example, that a cis person wanted to be intimate with you and said, "Hey, this isn't the configuration that I'm used to. Can you can you give me some tips on do's and don'ts and how this works?"
Well, that's pretty much a good way to go about that.
Okay,
Showing mindfulness and respect, and it's showing an understanding of the trans experience that we all have unique relationships with our bodies. So one person's answers could be different from another person's. So it's
absolutely.
not like you can just look it up on Google. Um, yeah, I don't believe many humans have had sexual contact with a person who has a penis and vagina. So I am very understanding about having conversations about, what would make me feel good and what would make the other person feel good, and boundaries and all that. My anatomy is unique. So if I'm, hoping to be intimate with someone, I have to be very open to talking about all that. Uh, I have no problem letting them know that ins and outs.
So to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, how different is that from anyone else? I mean, I have sex with other men, and I don't know two guys that like their dick sucked in exactly the same way. And so there's this process, sometimes overtly asking, and sometimes just physical trial and error and seeing what actually turns the other person on. So, I mean, is your experience not just something on that broader scale of what different people like and don't like?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to like to get to know people because, I mean, for assortment of reasons, one
Yeah,
being very unique. So I need to make sure that they're not going to be weird about it,
yeah,
and they're going to treat me with, the respect and mindfulness that, I expect in those sort of situations. Uh, so I'm very open to talking about all that, and very open to leading that sort of conversation, because I can understand someone looking at me and be like, how do they do it?
yeah, yeah,
Like, or what do they do? What do they enjoy? Like, the answer to that question could be literally anything. So it's
yeah, yeah.
good to.
And so for the cisgender people out there who, there is a trans person that they would like to approach, and have some fun with. What are sort of the basics of being respectful? How does one go about being respectful?
Um, Treat them like a human being, not like a mindless sex robot. uh, or, even if in your within your community or your sub part of your community, it's common to be very forward and direct, especially when talking about genitalia
Mm.
or, or what you want sexually. I would, you know, encourage a cis person to let the trans person speak for themselves instead of, insisting upon your interests, because your interest might not
Uh,
whatsoever, and it could make them uncomfortable.
okay.
Uh, and you could be doing well with them, and you could be thinking that you're showing, respectful interest, but you could say something wrong.
Mhm.
It's always important to, you know, uh, ask, about like what they what they like, and if they feel comfortable sharing, what they refer to, their anatomy, they can. Um, but I would say most trans people, you know, don't like it. Uh, you know, People to be like sexually aggressive and very, very blunt and straightforward. I mean, there are some, but you know, a lot of us, it's like, hey, have a conversation with me. Let
Yeah.
me decide if I'm interested in you, because I think a lot of trans people want to make sure that their sexual experience isn't with a somebody who's going to be transphobic.
Right. Right. That feeling of safety first.
Hmm.
Yeah. So if if as a cisgendered person I want to approach a trans man and say, hey, I'm interested in you. I would like to get physical with you, to take the time to allow the trans man to have that sense of safety. That's what
Yeah,
I'm hearing. Yeah. And the other thing I'm hearing is, we get to that moment when you're in the room and you both have your clothes off, for the cisgendered person to be curious and to ask questions and say, hey, how do I give you pleasure?
yeah. I
But
mean,
yeah,
if it's especially if the trans person knows it's your first experience with a trans person, or with that sort of anatomy, then I think most of them would be very understanding if
okay,
they were presented the question that way.
okay, fair enough. So as I take two steps backwards and try maybe to sum up our conversation, put these pieces of who you are together, what do you think is the biggest lesson that you've learned?
Your well-being is worth every effort that you put into it. What makes you happy, what makes you healthy, helps you grow and sustains you. It's all worth investing in. Investing, your time, your money, your effort, all of that. So, a critical part of a lot of trans people's well-being is um, that mind-body connection and feeling at home. And for those who choose any sort of medical intervention, that's it's life changing, it's life saving for the people, who feel the need for that for themselves.
I hear
So
you. I hear you. And so what I think I'm hearing in that is, hey, it has been a rocky road at times to find the money and the conditions and the people around me to support me to go on this journey and to have these procedures done. And yet, as difficult as that may have been, it is something that what I'm hearing you say is worth every penny, worth every effort.
yes,
Yeah.
at least in my experience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, understanding that other people may have other definitions of how they want to be physically, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Of course.
Um, when I was thinking about talking to you, I thought to myself, we're in an age where paradoxically some people are more informed about the trans experience than ever before. And I was thinking about, I have some friends who, as I mentioned, are sex workers and porn stars, and they have performed alongside trans performers. And this is the products that they've made have been fairly mainstream and widely accepted. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, at the same time, there are people who are increasingly hostile. Um, you know, legislation being passed, making sure that people use specific bathrooms and all of that sort of nonsense. Um, would you agree with what I've just said? And if so, what's it like for you to experience both extremes?
Um, I agree that there are a lot of polarizing views about trans people, and uh, with us progressively being more in mainstream media, it seems like more people have more polarizing views. Uh, you know, I've been yelled at out of locker rooms, and you know, I've been chased out of establishments, and I've experienced transphobia at work and in my personal life. Um, but I know that so many others in the community have it so much harder than I do. I, I've been fortunate enough to figure out ways to, access and finance the surgeries that I've needed to, you know, and the hormones that I've needed to navigate through life, where I can feel comfortable being stealth at, which keeps me safe. Um, and that's, it's a privilege I'm not gonna, I have to recognize, and that it obviously not every trans person has uh, that privilege.
Right.
Our, we all have, different desires for self-expression and how we want to look and how we want to present in the world. So not everyone wants to live a stealth life. Not everyone can live a stealth life.
Mhm.
So I'm, I think it'd be good to get this to ask this question to an assortment of trans people and get an assortment of
Yeah, for
answers.
sure, for sure. I can imagine we get many different responses. And, if you'll indulge me for just a second, a friend of mine, again, somebody in the adult industry, told me a story where they were filming, the group of people were filming with a new performer. They were kind of meeting for the first time. And then they thought he was hot, it was good filming or whatever. And then when the filming was done, they all went out to eat. And very early on in the conversation, through his comments, it was clear that this man, the newcomer, was one of those people who is LGB without the T, right? And
Uh,
so and so the when he made a comment to this effect, the entire table went silent, and everybody looked at him, and somebody said, "Well, this is the last time we'll be filming with you."
uh,
And so what I take from that, so all of the other people were cisgendered at the table, and yet all of them were in unanimity that there's no LGB without the T.
I'm appreciative of those allies, and hopefully that other individual had some, time to reflect.
Absolutely. So I guess where I was going with that story is we've talked about how difficult it can be. Do things like that give you hope?
Oh yeah, no, I've seen greater acceptance within the LGBTQIA community itself for trans people,
Mhm.
since I started my transition, um, and I've seen it for outside the community as well. Uh, I feel that even though there's it feels like there's a lot more hate and ignorance than ever before, that there's also just as many people standing in our corner, or at least more people than ever.
Okay.
So that gives me
Well,
hope.
yeah, and that's what I was kind of wondering about is what is it like to have those both those things true at the same time? I think there are a number of men who are in their 20s and 30s, gay men, cisgendered gay men, who are very vocal anytime they run across something that's anti-trans, and it's kind of uniform for men of that generation. And so that made me kind of sit up and and realize that something is perhaps changing, and changing for the better. Um, what do you think is the most important thing that people should take away from our conversation today?
Uh, Trans people are just humans who want the same basic rights as everybody else. We just want to live our authentic lives like cis people. We deserve access to healthcare. We deserve to be able to use the bathroom in peace. We we deserve to have happy, healthy lives. Everyone does.
The universe, I was laughing because the university where I work has renovated parts of the building, and many of the bathrooms are all gendered. And so everybody uses the same bathroom. And I was like, I can understand the importance of being able to use a men's bathroom because the women talk an awful lot while they're in there. You're saying being able to use the bathroom in peace. I was like, amen to that, brother.
That's an interesting situation, but it's a problem so far.
Yeah, okay. The other thing I liked was, the story of you competing, and the biggest problem you had that day was that your tan didn't turn out the way that you had hoped.
Oh God, it was awful. I will
Yeah.
not show. Yeah.
And so I take heart from that story to say, if that was the biggest problem that day, then surely that's a sign of good things.
And that was 2017.
Okay.
We're going in the right direction.
Okay. Absolutely. All right, my friend. I want to thank you really from the bottom of my heart, Jesse, for having this conversation with me today. I've learned a great deal, and I suspect that the people listening have learned a great deal too. One of the things that always happens every time I post an interview is I get people saying, I really identified with your guest. This is my situation too, and thank you for speaking about something because it's helped me. So I'll pass along those thanks maybe in advance to you.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
All right, that's it for today's episode. Thanks everybody for tuning in.